Why are you even on the screen, man? Get off of my screen. What's going on? Good morning. It is Friday, September the 17th, 2021. Uh, Welcome. This is Wake Up with Ray G, presented and hosted by Bets TV. I'm joined as always by my partner in crime, Jay Rich, at your boy Jay Rich on Twitter. Jordan, we made it, man. It's Friday, bro. It's Friday. I'm happy. It's Friday. How are you?
I'm excited. We got a loaded show sheet. Excellent game yesterday, so that'll be fun to talk about. But just so much stuff to get into. We didn't even hit all the games we wanted to yesterday. So big show today. Stay in for the whole show. We got lots of props, lots of stuff to talk about. Germany in the building again.
Yeah.
Jordan,
I got to give everybody a shout out. Eddie, Campus to Canton, Matt Bruning in the house, my man Cody Carpentier. Hey, the only man on Twitter that I know was on Zay Jones. He hit that bit. He hit that O. So good job. What up, Cody? Roto Underworld. Clock Dodgers in the building. Zach. Man, it's good, man. It's dope. Ray, to answer your question yesterday, I bought Mahomes for Kyler and Mac Jones. That was my question. I asked the people, what are you trading Patrick Mahomes for in Dynasty? And Eddie said he got Mahomes for Kyler and Mac Daddy Jones. So there we go. But we made it. Jorgen from Germany, Paul in the building, man. Lindsey Mack. I'm feeling good this morning. And I owe a bunch of apologies to the Giants fans. It was a good game. It wasn't Tampa-Dallas, but it was a good game, bro. That was a very, very good game last night, but we'll get into that. But quickly, we've got a ton of games we got to get through, so let's run through the news real quick. Shohei Ohtani is unlikely to pitch the last couple of games of the season. Does this open the door for Vlad Guerrero Jr., Jay, to win AL MVP? You know I put some money on that blindly with zero research. I put an entire unit on Vlad Guerrero at 10-1. Is there a shot, man? Is there a shot for Guerrero to pull this off?
It definitely helps because Vlad closing the season on a good note is great. The Jays are currently in the AL wildcard, but they're only a half game ahead of the Yankees, and they're tied with the Red Sox. So basically, it's a three-way race right now between the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Blue Jays for two wildcard spots in the AL. Going to be really exciting, but if the Jays do hit that wildcard spot, it could mean that Vlad gets that MVP, and you hit a nice 10-1.
Okay, well, I need it to happen. And real quick, y'all see, listen, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong every damn time. I just call him Double G. Double G.
Yes, sir.
Follow him on Twitter. If you want to hit
Touchdown G.
Touchdown G. I'm not going to put the EESU. I ain't going to put the G's. You know what I mean. But follow him on Twitter. I'm talking about his touchdown props, home run props. He is all over it. All I see is the emoji with the money tongue sticking out and like boom, boom, boom. Follow my dog, man. I'm telling you, good stuff happening at Bets, man. Good stuff happening at Bets. But where are we at? What else?
So the other thing to mention is that Giles does have a show on Bets TV, a Dog Day Afternoon, and he was on J.D. McKissick's touchdown prop at plus 500, and I believe he was up 3 units yesterday. But getting back to the news, it was announced yesterday that the Colts are going to be featured on an in-season version of Hard Knocks. Again, that's the Indianapolis Colts. Ray, are you interested in that? Because personally, I'm not. I don't think the Colts are a very interesting franchise. I'm not too excited to watch them on Hard Knocks. But, we'll see. We'll kind of see what happens with that. It's going to start on November 17th. And then for my hockey fans, it was announced that Seattle Kraken are going to make their debut game in Las Vegas on October 12th, and their first home game will be on October 23rd against the Vancouver Canucks. So that'll be a pretty big game. Vancouver, Seattle should form a bit of a rivalry in the NHL. I'm excited. If you've ever seen the Kraken logo, I love the name. I love the logo. I think I'm going to become a diehard Seattle Kraken fan this season and just tell all the Leafs fans to shove it.
Yeah, listen, I am interested in that in-season Hard Knocks. I really am. I'm very interested. I think it's going to give a unique inside look into sort of what happens in season. We see all the practice stuff that happens during the training camp of Hard Knocks, but in season, it's a different vibe. It's a different flow. It's a different structure. So I think that will provide a really unique look, especially if they're on the cusp of the playoffs and they're pushing for that playoff run. I think it's going to make for some compelling TV. So this is... Listen, these people are smart. They know that we want to see this, get these behind-the-scenes looks at some of these teams. So I think this is a smart move by HBO, and it's really dope that this was announced. I remember them saying there was going to be a big Hard Knocks announcement. I had no clue that they would actually allow a camera crew inside the building as they're making a push for the playoffs. But I think it's actually pretty damn dope, man. So I'm excited about this. What's going on? Mike Strawn, first Bohannon But what is this? I can't read. Born player in the NFL.
Muhammad, I'm assuming.
Yeah, man. Hey, Mike Strawn. Cody's been all over these cats, man. Like, for real. Stone said they should have picked Green Bay for the in-season Hard Knocks. Yeah, that would have been dope. That would have been dope. But look, we got to get into it. Let's talk about this Giants football team game right after we get into the morning run. Let's go.
Wake up! This is the morning run.
Run, Forrest, run!
All right, so last night it was a good game. The Giants and the football team, Daniel Jones was balling out. We got to see Taylor Heineke play. He played really well. And I mean, majority of let me tell you something. The worst thing that happened last night. Jay, do you know what the worst thing that happened last night? Can you guess what I'm going to say? The worst thing that happened last night in that game.
That you hit a Daniel Jones rushing
No. From like a fantasy perspective, what's the worst thing that happened last night? Because something terrible happened last night, and it screwed a lot of us. Something terrible happened last night, and it screwed a lot of people.
Probably, I don't know. That's a good question. I would say Antonio Gibson, but I
no,
don't know.
No. This is the worst thing that happened last night. The worst thing that happened in that game from a fantasy perspective was Saquon Barkley ripping off that 40-yard run. That was the worst thing that could happen. Let me tell you why. Because that run did just enough to probably close the buy low window that would have happened outside of that run. Had he not ripped off that 40-yard run and he went 13 for 20 or 13 for 15, because that was the chunk of his yards. This morning, we could have gone out and tried to acquire Saquon Barkley probably at 75 cents on the dollar. Like, we would have had a shot to get a buy low. But that run was the worst thing that happened last night because everybody still saw the juice. And I don't even think he's 100. He didn't even look like he was 100% on the run.
No.
So if he can move like that right now, still kind of iffy on the knee, not all the way confident, anybody that has Saquon Barkley on the roster, they saw enough to say, you know what? I can't trade him. Like, I'm not going to sell him. I'm not going to, I'm pissed. I wish he would have just went off. I wish he would have just went nuts, right? Opposed to doing absolutely nothing outside of that big run. That was the worst thing that happened last night was Saquon making that run. So the football team did win 30-29. Daniel Jones, I mean, when you talk about maybe one of the best games of his career, where he only threw for 249, he had a touchdown, 9 carries, 95 yards, another touchdown. That may have been the most impressive I've seen Daniel Jones look. And kudos to Jason Garrett for running so many of those zone read run pass options with Daniel Jones to utilize his athleticism. Say what you want about his decision making. Say what you want about the turnovers that he continues to commit. He's a hell of an athlete. And we've seen him, from max speed on that 90-yard trip run last season or 2 years ago to what he was doing last night. When he's dialed in and not turning the ball over and utilizing his legs to make plays, like, stop trying to make him this drop back Eli Manning pocket passer. Utilize Daniel Jones' athleticism. I think if they develop a game script, much like they just did last night, I mean, he could be a Konami Code type quarterback, man. I mean, that rushing line alone, you would have been happy with for a running back. If you said Saquon went out there for 9 for 95 and a touchdown, you're good. Like, you're money. You're loving that week. So you're getting that plus the additional passing yards, whatever passing bonuses you have. Danny Dimes, man, I ain't even going to call him – we got to find a new name because I ain't going to call him Dimes even though he was on last night. But utilize that man's athleticism. Utilize his rushing ability. And, yes, I did hit the Daniel Jones rushing touchdown prop. You talked me into that. You were like, dude, Daniel Jones over like every 5 games he's running for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And I said, damn it, Jay, I'm going to take that bet. So thank you for that. Taylor Heineke in his, I think, 3rd career start gets his first win.
Yeah.
Gets his first win last night. He was 34 for 46. Started out a little rough, but he settled down. Yeah. And what did he do? He leaned on his big dog. He leaned on one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and he got the ball to Terry McLaurin. And once you get the ball to Terry McLaurin, good things happen because he is uncoverable. You start him. I'm not trying to be prisoner of the moment. I did a quick Twitter search of my handle and Terry McLaurin's name, and it's just littered with just takes. I love Terry McLaurin. He's got to be a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. Has to be a top 10 wide receiver. Right now, would you rather Terry McLaurin or any of the rookies from 2021? Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, or Terry McLaurin? Who do you want?
I'm taking Terry McLaurin, but I think there will be a case for Devonta Smith quickly.
I think it'll
today
be a
I'm
case
Terry
for
McLaurin.
Smith and Chase. I mean, I think both of those dudes. I think Smith and Chase should be valued as top 12 dynasty receivers next year. And I think Chase already is.
Yeah.
But I think after this season, what Devonta Smith is going to do, and we'll talk about some of his prop numbers, which are absolutely disrespectful and free money once again. More free money. We'll get into that. Terry McLaurin, 11 for 107 and 1. I hit the over on the 5.5 receptions. I was a little skeptical of that at first because I'm like, I don't know if they're going to try to run the ball, keep it away from the Giants. But he did hit the 5.5 receptions. Sterling Shepard balling out. Shout out to some of the folks that I told to draft Sterling Shepard, and they argued me to death that he's not the number one. We saw that video of Kenny Golladay screaming angrily on the sideline in Daniel Jones's vicinity in front of Sterling Shepard because he was non-existent. He did absolutely nothing, and they're paying him $72 million to be the beta to Sterling Shepard's alpha. Like, if I'm Shep, I wouldn't come back unless they paid me more than Golladay. Like, screw that, man. So Shep balled out 9 for 94. We both hit on Sterling Shepard's over receptions and receiving yards. Antonio Gibson rushing yards hit that. You did not hit the receiving yard prop. I had that as well. I had it at 18.5. Didn't hit that. Like, where's this whole Antonio Gibson is going to be Christian McCaffrey? You know, Ron Rivera told us that. We all bought in the offseason, and so far it looks like the forgotten man, J.D. McKissic, is still going to continue to be heavily involved. He was on the field in 2-minute drills. He's catching the passes.
Yep.
They're utilizing him in the goal line. What is up with Antonio Gibson, man?
I don't know. It's frustrating because I'm sure you feel the same way. It's definitely no slight to J.D. McKissic, but I feel like Antonio Gibson can just do everything he can do but better. You know, unless you're asking him to pass protect, even that wheel down the sideline, J.D. McKissic got caught. I don't think you're catching Antonio Gibson's 4.3 speed down the sideline if he catches a wheel route. So it's odd to me to see these types of things because they could run the same plays for McKissic, but they're just not run the same plays for Gibson. They're just not doing that. And that's what I think is the most frustrating part. But again, last week he got 5 targets. This week he only got 2. I don't know if it's Taylor Heineke. And that was a small fear of mine. You know, when we were talking about that bet was Taylor Heineke. Is he going to target the running back? He did a little bit when it was McKissic, but he didn't so much when it was Gibson. You know, I saw a few times where Gibson was open, just kind of out in the flats. He didn't throw it to him. He chose to throw it downfield. Again, that's just how the quarterback plays. Nothing you can do about it, but it's something to monitor going forward if you're expecting Gibson to hit these rushing props and get a lot of targets going forward. Oh, you muted, man.
I didn't want the people to hear me drinking. I didn't want to hear YouTube comments saying they don't want to hear my, what is that thing? ARSM, AMSR.
ASMR.
AMSR, whatever that means. I know the people didn't want to hear that. But here's my sneaky takeaway from that matchup, man. I think Taylor Heineke is going to be, I think he can be a solid quarterback too in fantasy for this season. Like what the long-term potential is, I don't know. But if they're going to ask him to throw the ball 50 times a game, 35 passes a game, with Terry McLaurin, with the running game, with Logan Thomas, I think he can be, and he even took his shots to De'Ami Brown, missed a couple. De'Ami came down with a big catch one time. I think Heineke is a sneaky buy. Like, if you're a contender and, you've got, think about it real, like, I know this sounds crazy. Would you have more confidence in Ben Roethlisberger as your QB2 or Taylor Heineke right now? You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Think about that.
That's tough because the other thing that we didn't see was Heineke running the ball. We know that he can run, but he really didn't run that much. He threw a lot. And the bookmakers nailed this number because remember when we talked about it, it was 280 yards. It seemed really high to me, but he went for 330. So clearly they undershot it and they actually probably priced it pretty well. So that was surprising for me at least. They definitely did pass more than they ran, but he could be pretty damn good because we know that he can work with his legs if he really has to.
Like, I think, and if I'm in contention, I have no problem giving up a 2022 second for him in Superflex to compete for this season. Like, I think if you've got Heineke, I would try to shop him. And if you need a quarterback and you're sitting there rolling out Ben Roethlisberger, you're rolling out, I can't really think of any. I mean, there are a couple of others that are a little bit on shaky ground, but I think I'd rather have Heineke over Big Ben. And I know that sounds crazy because we know Big Ben is a Hall of Famer, but that's where I'm at. Anything else from this game? Saquon, Shep, no Kadarius Toney once again. I saw somebody talk about Toney in the in the comments. We knew that wasn't going to happen. Just a really good game. Really good game between two teams that were competing in division. Nice. And now it says, now we know why Ron Rivera wasn't going after Cam Newton. I think Heineke is a nice piece, man. And here's the thing. It's the bird in the hand thing. Like, you've got this thing that maybe, because they did give him a 2-year extension, maybe they roll into next season with still draft the quarterback, but he's got another year to kind of prove himself. It's almost looking like the Gardner Minshew effect from a couple of years ago, you know?
Yeah.
Do you cash out now, or do you hold the bag thinking that he may be the long-term answer? I don't know. We'll get into that another day. We've got to beat the rush and get into the rest of the slate.
Wake up! This is Beat the Rush.
Get out of the way, jackass!
All right, so this week, this was the graphic from yesterday, but I just quickly want to talk about, we didn't get into the San Francisco-Philadelphia game. So right now, San Francisco is favored by 3 points and over-under of 50. The 49ers, if you take the Eagles on the money line outright, plus 144 price, not bad at all. We know all the drama. It just seems like so much drama is around the fort. I'm just so sick of the 49ers, from the draft to this stuff with the running back position to the stuff with Ayuk to rolling out Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance, and I'm really getting just irritated. Like, it's just annoying to continue to watch Shanahan in the news talk about Ayuk needs to get out of the doghouse. He needs to play better. And Sermon is looking great in training camp, and then he's not better than JaMychal Hasty. I'm over them, over the 49ers. But let's talk about a couple of the props here. Brandon Ayuk, score a touchdown, plus 220. What are you thinking, Jay?
I don't hate it. I don't love it, though. I don't know how they're going to be used. Ayuk didn't really play last week. Eagles cornerbacks looked pretty fine. Like, I don't think they looked bad last week against this anemic Falcons offense. Right. But it was one of those props I saw. I thought, maybe I'll run it by you, see what you think, but I'm not loving it personally.
Yeah, I'm not going to take it. Even at plus 220, I can't trust it. Until proven otherwise, I can't fool with it, man. What else do we have from this game? Deebo Samuel over under 5.5 receptions at minus 115 and 60.5 receiving yards at minus 115 as well. As is George Kittle over under 5.5 receptions and then 68.5 receiving yards for George Kittle. Elijah Mitchell plus 120 to score a touchdown in this matchup against Philadelphia. Do any of these props tickle your fancy this week?
I really like Elijah Mitchell, actually. If he's going to be the starter, if he's going to get 15, 16 carries, I think there's a really good shot he scored a touchdown. He scored a touchdown last week in, I wouldn't say limited starters duties. He basically started the whole game. So for me, and then especially talking about how good I thought the running game looked last week for even Cordero Patterson, right? Like, the running game wasn't great for Atlanta, but it looked decent. And I think if you take Shanahan's running game and you put it up against that Philly defense, they will be pretty successful. And I think that Mitchell could definitely fall in the end zone for a touchdown. So for me, that's where I'm kind of leaning at. The rest of them I don't love so much. Deebo is kind of fine if you want to go 5.5 receptions there. I don't love the Kittle number, but maybe he could go over. As far as I'm concerned, I have the money line right now for Philly. I took that yesterday at plus 155. It's coming down even since I bet that. So I expect it to come down a little bit. It's one of those upsets you're hearing a lot in the betting market. So I do expect Philly to win, and I think they're going to be 2-0 heading into their matchup with Dallas on Monday night next week.
I like this. Evan says DraftKings has a week 2 special. Over, basically get one rushing touchdown plus Devonta Smith, one receiving touchdown, plus 400. So 4-1 odds on that one. And that's a good segue to roll right into Philadelphia. And I'm going to talk about one of the players who, if you want free money, this right here is, I have no clue how they continue to put Devonta Smith's receiving reception total at 4. Like, yes, over. I'm going to put 2 units on this today. Devonta Smith over 3.5 receptions versus a San Francisco secondary who just lost Jason Verrett. Man, that sucks, man. Another ACL tear for such a talented cornerback. But we already know he is the number one option in Philadelphia. I know the game started out Quez Watkins stretching the defense out laterally with like 3 straight receptions. Dallas Goedert's going to do his thing. Jalen Reagor's going to get his. But there's no doubt that the Slim Reaper is the alpha in that offense. 3.5 receptions feels like stealing money for Devonta Smith. And I think his over-under receiving yard total, what's that at for Devonta Smith? 44.5. So 45 receiving yards and plus 210 to score a touchdown. Do you like this Devonta Smith line, man? Is it just silly in your opinion?
Yep. I'd be hammering both numbers. They're way too low. I believe they're basically what they were last week, and I believe he had 6 receptions for 60 or 80 yards,
70,
and he scored,
71
right?
yards and a touchdown. Yeah. 6-7.
Yeah, so I mean, why can't he do the same thing against another defense that, frankly, allowed a lot of yards last week, and they were projected to win by a lot of points, and they didn't play that well. So as far as I'm concerned, Devonta Smith, easy over. He should see 5 to 6 receptions, potentially even more than that, depending on volume. To see a guy go out there and dominate week 1, it's going to continue for sure against a defense that really didn't play very well last week.
Well, and say what you want. I mean, he was matched up sometimes with A.J. Terrell, and A.J. Terrell is a good young cornerback, right? There's still individual matchups on the outside. I think it's free money. Jalen Hurts, I think there's a couple of bets in here that I love as well. So his over under 229 passing yards, 49.5 rushing yards. Listen, Jared Goff just dropped 338 on the Niners defense, and Hurts threw the ball 35 times last week in a blowout victory, in a solid victory. He threw the ball 35 times for 264, and he ran for 62 yards this week. I like the over passing yards. The rushing yards, I don't know because you still have to.
It's pretty high.
You still got to deal with the best Mike backer in the league. You got Nick Bosa on the edge. That I'm not gonna take the 49ers run defense for granted. So if I'm gonna do anything, I do think it would be the passing yard totals for Jalen Hurts. But I do like what's his passing touchdowns? Is it 1.5 again? And
1.5 still, yeah.
And you can get
at plus 120 for the over.
Well, shoot, points bet you can get plus 125 for the over.
Yeah.
So in some books you can still get some nice juice on the over. Jalen Reagor, 34.5 receiving yards and 3.5 receptions for young Reg. Boy, and look at Cody. I grabbed the over on 300 total yards for Hurts. I like that. I like that because if he goes out there, he's going to give you at minimum 20-something rushing yards and probably 20 on one carry. And again, I'm not taking the 49ers front seven for granted. And even with Jimmy Ward in the back end, still a tough defense. But no Verrett, I think this leads for a lot of good scoring in this matchup. Anything else you want to hear about from this game, Jay?
No, I think you nailed it. It was just Miles Sanders, 64.5 rushing yards and 17.5 receiving. Didn't love either of those numbers, so I'd probably just leave them for now. If you really want to take the under on the rushing yards, you can, but I think that there will be some holes because we know that Jalen's going to run the read option, and there will be options for him to run the ball. But yeah, I'm passing on Sanders this week, just hammering the Devonta Smith line, and to your point, I did love that number on Jalen Hurts' passing yards.
Anything with Reagor, I still got to see.
I was concerned about his. I was concerned about his average at the target. I think he was second last in air yards across the whole league. So it was really just he made his hay on that screen pass, right?
Well, and that's what he did at TCU. Like he can go vertically, but if you go watch any Jalen Reagor highlight and you see like explosive plays, it was on those smoke screens. It was on those tunnel screens, getting them the ball quick and letting them do damage after the catch. Like I think his ceiling, since I was high on Reagor coming in, a lot of people were. I think he's like a Deebo Samuel. He's one of those guys, and Deebo's developed, but early on, yak guy. Just get him the ball quick, let him play physical, let him do his thing. Smith is going to be the one that's going to run the dig routes, the post corners, the 9 routes, know how to get right? The chain mover. That's going to be Smith. And then Quez Watkins is he's just a good utility player. Like he really fits that offense well. And again, we saw him get 3 catches on the first 3 passes. So fun offense with Philadelphia. But let's take a look at what do we have this week? New Orleans and Carolina. And the Saints are a 3.5-point favorite in this matchup. Jameis Winston, in that high MVP odd category right now for LASIK Jameis. Carolina plus 159 on the money line. Over under 44.5 for the Saints and the Panthers. So who are we going to talk about? We got to talk about CMC, right?
Oh, yeah. We'll start with my favorite line by a mile across all the books. So you pull up the graphic, but CMC for some reason is listed at 5.5 receptions over under. This is an easy over for anyone who watched the game this week. It was very easy to see that Sam Darnold, while he's not the best quarterback, he's not dumb either. He knows that Christian McCaffrey is always going to be there, and he did not hesitate to dump it off when there was pressure. Christian McCaffrey went 9 for 9 for 95 yards this week. The Saints defense is going to be coming after Sam Darnold all game long, and he's going to have to get the ball to Christian McCaffrey quickly because that's his outlet. That's his guy. That's how he's going to stop getting sacked on every damn play. And Christian McCaffrey is going to be there. He's reliable, and he's going to be great for fantasy this week. Again, 5.5 receptions is an easy over. He went for 9 last week on 9 targets. I could see another 9 to 10 this week as well. Again, Captain America, as I called him in the graphic. Very easy over for me to hit. And I forget what the number was on it. It was minus 135. So
minus 135.
You know, a little bit juiced down, but still very, very good odds for 5.5 for Christian McCaffrey.
Well, think about it. The over is plus 110, so you might as well the under is plus 110, so that you're not even getting a good price on that. Like, I think they're expecting him to go over 5.5 receptions, and they're trying to catch a couple of suckers to take the under. But CMC over 5.5 receptions, especially with the defensive line that is coming, that is humming, that creates easy dump-off opportunities, and it's not even off script. I mean, the plan is to get Christian McCaffrey the ball as much as possible. Like, so far this week, what we've talked about, my 2 auto locks are Smith and Christian McCaffrey over their the receptions totals. Sam Darnold, 238.5 passing and 1.5 passing touchdowns for Sam Darnold. DJ Moore, 58.5 receiving yards with a minus 114 price, and then 4.5 receptions for Moore. Robbie Anderson, 48.5 receiving yards, 4.5 receptions. If I took any of those, it would be DJ Moore. But is Marshawn Lattimore
usage?
Is Marshawn Lattimore playing? And not that I would shy away from it, but I'm just interested.
I don't believe so. No, I don't believe so. But yeah, especially when you talk about usage. Robbie Anderson only caught that deep touchdown last week, and that was it. And I believe on only 3 targets. DJ Moore looked great, and I fully expect him to stay involved. Whether you want to take the receptions at minus 130 for the over if you think he hits 5, but I'm much more confident in the receiving yards. He was receiving a lot of deep targets, made some great catches. Much more confident in that. But kind of going back to, I wanted to talk to you, Ray, about Alvin Kamara for a second.
Yeah.
You know, Jameis Winston, 231 passing yards. Don't love that. But Alvin Kamara, rushing yards, 65.5. Now, I kind of like the over here. Last week, he went for 20 carries, and he went, I believe, for 81 yards. But when I was looking up his splits against Carolina, he actually averages about 5.5 yards per carry against Carolina for his career. And so, from that standpoint, I'm kind of like, well, what are they going to do this week? Are they going to run the ball? Because I don't think that him getting 20 carries was a product of the game itself. I think that was just their plan. They planned to run him a lot, right? Yep. And so if he gets another 20 carries against Carolina, which I think is very beatable because Jameis wasn't really dumbing it down to him, they were really relying heavily on that run game. And again, this offensive line is talented. That Green Bay defensive line is pretty good too, and I think it's much less formidable in Carolina. So they're going to be able to move the ball, especially on the ground, and I've seen Alvin Kamara have some big games against Carolina before. So that's what kind of led me to thinking about taking this over. It was one of the lines I was kind of the least confident with as far as the ones I brought up to you. But I think there's a real possibility he goes over fairly easily against a pretty weak Carolina defense. It's really just Derek Brown in the middle. If he can avoid him, I think he's going to be okay if he stays on the edges.
Is Carolina's defense bad, or is the Jets' offense bad? Because the defense
We're
looked
still
good
figuring
last
that out.
Yeah, I don't think we. I'll just say, I don't think we know yet. Not after 1 week, because their defense did look good last week. But then again, the Jets' offensive line gave up 6 sacks to Zach Zach Wilson took 6 sacks. So I don't know if their defense is that bad yet. But I like Alvin Kamara. It wasn't game script. Like you still have a new quarterback playing who's been turnover prone in his career with not that many weapons around him on the outside. I don't think it was a coincidence that Alvin Kamara handled so much stuff. So, and Top Dog said the defense is all right. I think they're good. Jeremy Chin and then Jackson and J.C. Horn, Shaq Thompson, Derek Brown. I think they're a solid defense. I think they have weapons at every level. But I do like Alvin Kamara over 65 and a half, 68 and a half, 65 and a half
65 and a half, yeah.
Yeah, I think I like that more than his receiving yards, honestly. I think I have more confidence than in his rushing than I do his receiving yard total. I would probably take the rushing. And Cody says Carolina defense is underrated, but still a year away. So there you go. And Cody is one of the guys who I know focuses on defense as well as offense. So there's that. Any thoughts on who wins the game? I don't really care because I'm focused on the player props. I don't really bet the spread. I think I did one teaser yesterday, and I did like a 6.5 point teaser. But I just do the player props. I do individual player props or parlay the player props. So I really don't care who wins, which makes it like funner to watch because I don't care who wins. I just need you guys to score. I like go over or under. Lost to Saquon Barkley under as well. God damn it. I had it at 52.5. Did not hit the Saquon Barkley under last night. But let's take a look at, what are we looking at? Denver, what week is this? Denver and Jacksonville. So Denver favored by 6, over under 45.5. I mean, I don't know who is going to win this game, honestly. I have no clue.
Really? You don't think Denver wins it easily? I didn't even pull a Teddy prop because I just think that it's going to be way too high for my liking.
I don't.
But I think Denver's going to win it pretty easily, personally. I think that defense showed how good they are last week. And my first prop that I want to pull from this game was actually KJ Hamler's longest reception. You know, I love to hit those longest reception props. Yep. They're one of my favorites to go after. KJ Hamler, a speedster. Jerry Jeudy down. Like, there's lots of reasons to like this prop. 17.5 is easy money for KJ Hamler. You know, his average depth of target's over 20 yards. He can average 15 to 16 yards of reception. 17.5 yards for a longest reception for KJ Hamler is way, 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 way too easy. His receiving yards prop is only 33.5. So if you think he catches a bomb, that's another good one to take. And 2.5 receptions is very heavily juiced to the over. So if you think he's going to hit 3 receptions, which bettors seem to think he will, then 33.5 receptions, 33.5 receiving yards should be a given, and a 17.5 longest reception should be easy money as far as I'm concerned. Then you have Noah Fant at 45.5 receiving yards, 4.5 receptions. Cortland Sutton at 50.5 receiving yards and 4.5 receptions. I don't love either of those numbers. It was really just the Hamler number I wanted to check out, knowing that Jeudy was out and knowing how good Hamler looked in the preseason. You know, he's catching balls from Drew Lock, but even still, Hamler looked great in the preseason, so I think he's going to eat now with Jeudy out, and they'll be able to game plan with him in that kind of number 3 role.
Yeah, I think I like all 3 legs of the Hamler. Like, you could parlay Hamler by itself, 3 legs, right? You ain't going to get nothing off of it. You got to add some other things in there, but I think the receiving yards, the receptions, and the longest reception is a smash for a KJ Hamler. You know, Fant, Sutton, they should, but I just don't have the conviction to put any money on that. And you can get Cortland Sutton. I like that. If I took anything on Sutton, it'd be over 4.5 receptions without Jeudy. They do need to complete the ball somewhere, and you get plus money on that, plus 120. So I kind of like that for Sutton as well. The Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, 251 passing, 1.5 passing touchdowns, and 12.5 rushing yards. I think quarterback rushing yard props are like the easiest things to hit.
Yeah.
I like that for Trevor Lawrence, 12.5. He's going to have to scramble. And, you know, he doesn't lose yards for sacks. So I like that for Trevor Lawrence. James Robinson, I hope that clip that was going around Twitter yesterday with him running down an interception, I hope that it compels Urban Meyer to give him some more carries. Because right now his rushing yard line is 39.5. And how terrifying is that? Like, that's just scary, right? Whether that's fantasy, whether that's for betting purposes, that's scary. DJ Chark, 50.5 yards, right? 50.5 yards for DJ Chark. We saw him catch a lot of passes, and he caught a deep touchdown from Trevor Lawrence in week 1. Longest reception, 21.5 yards. I have more confidence in KJ Hamler's longest reception at 17.5 opposed to DJ Chark's. But 3.5 receptions for Chark, he should hit that, and the bettors think so as well, minus 149.
Yeah, I can't believe this number is so low. Chark saw 12 targets and almost 200 air yards last week. The only reason why he didn't have such a good week was because he only caught 3 of them. Again, they're a new quarterback with the receiver. They're starting to gel. Chark is clearly the deep target. And so when you think about getting 50.5 yards on a guy who got 12 targets last week, it's just too low for me. It's just way too low. It was probably the prop that I found that stuck out the most to me. I know people aren't the biggest Chark fans. They'd rather go after Shenault. And I don't mind his reception total if you want to go after that, but he's not getting the yardage that you want to see. You know, Marv is looking really good, but I was very surprised to see Chark getting 12 targets. And to your point about Trevor Lawrence, you're saying you're not sure who's going to win. I think Denver's going to win this game easily, but I think that it's going to be, again, Jacksonville playing catch up and just bombing it with Trevor Lawrence to those receivers all game long, which is going to lend itself to overs for a guy like Shark who gets those deep targets, overs for a guy like Marvin Jones. And then I think Chenault is probably safer for the receptions. And then he's at 49.5 receiving yards. So I'm sure you kind of feel the same way about that because Chenault's ADOT isn't quite that far.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they've got a good defense. Von Miller had 2 sacks week 1. Pat Surtain is out there, and, they're rookies. They struggle a little bit, as Cody said. Yeah. But Vegas is still giving Surtain the benefit. So I like DJ Chark. Like you said, 12 targets was not – targets are earned, man. Targets are earned. Do either of you factor in player props in start decisions in fantasy? Hell, yeah. I think that's why. I think player props are the most comparable, like, betting ways – to fantasy football. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the fact that, and think about it, like, and I know revision is history, but Saquon Barkley's line was anywhere from 50 rushing yards to 41, like before the game. Yeah. I think it was down to like 41. So they were anticipating him not getting a lot of work on a short week. And what did he do? He was right at 50 something rushing yards, no touchdowns, a reception or 2. I mean, I don't factor it into that degree because when you're doing player props, you've got everyone to choose from, and on your team, you got to make certain decisions. It's like, I got a league where it was either start Saquon or Tony Jones. And what I always ask myself, this is just Reggie Q fantasy advice tip. If there's a decision to be made, I base it on which player can I live with going off on my bench. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how I do it. If I'm split between 2 players in a start-sit decision, would I be okay? Like, if it was between Saquon Barkley and Tony Jones, if I bench Saquon and he went off, I'd feel sick. I'd be like, why would I do that? If I bench Tony Jones and started Saquon and Tony Jones goes off, I'll just be like, we'll chop it up to an L. Like, if it's between 2 players, I always think about it on which player am I okay with going off on my bench, and which player would I be just absolutely irate that I didn't start because I was trying to be too cute. So in this case, I did start Saquon Barkley. I had him out, put him back in, had him out, put him back in. I tried to take him out, and the game was locked, so I was like, the hell with it. I got to roll with it. But that's just a piece of Ray GQ fantasy advice for what that's worth, which probably isn't much. But let's take a look at Minnesota, Arizona. This should be an interesting matchup right here. And Minnesota, I'm at money line, plus 165 right now. Arizona are the favorites, favored by 3.5, over under 50.5 in this matchup. We're just going to touch on the top players. Kirk Cousins, 269.5 passing yards. Dalvin Cook, 77.5 rushing yards. Justin Jefferson, 69.5 receiving yards. What player props stand out to you in this one, Jordan? And I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't know what to do with Minnesota. This is one I don't know what to do. I don't know.
Yeah, this is, I believe, the only game that I researched that I didn't pick a single player prop. But what I will say in regards to the lines and stuff like that is that I think that all these props are lending towards an over. And I already have Arizona to cover, I believe, whatever, 2.5 or 3.5. I got the line pretty early.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you look at Kirk Cousins, 269.5. I like the over there if you want to go that route. I just think all these guys could go over, but the problem is that I'm not willing to place a bet on which one because I don't see a clear front runner here. So I think that Minnesota's going to be able to put up points, and I think that all the betting lines are indicative of that. Almost 65 yards for the top 3 guys. That's 200. That's almost 200 yards themselves just between the big 3. Then Kirk's going to have to throw the ball to some other guys. Like, I just think that it's lending itself towards an over, but I just don't know who to place the bet on. Justin Jefferson looks pretty good. I think if you want to place a bet on Thielen to score a touchdown, you can maybe go that route because he's great in the red zone, but you won't get the best odds on that. I think I'm just staying away from Minnesota because I think Arizona's going to win, and I'm kind of honestly scared that they get blown out by Arizona like they did last week to Tennessee.
Damn, you think they can get blown out?
Well, they didn't play that well against the Bengals last week. They didn't, and their offensive line was god awful. They had I want to say they had 6 or 7 line penalties in the first 2 drives. It was it was terrible.
So Kyler's passing yard line, 274, 36.5 rushing yards, and 1.5 passing touchdowns. Nuke Hopkins, 86.5 yards, 7.5 receptions. And then Rondell Moore, 40.5 receiving yards. I think he had 68 in week 1. 2.5 receptions. And that's, I mean, the bettors are, minus 161 on that. And what's this? Over under 32.5 receiving yards, but points bet only in New Jersey. So, yeah, I would love that if I get over under 32.5 receiving yards for Rondale Moore. I think Kyler could light him up as well. I think Kyler could absolutely light him up. So 274. And if he throws for 274, 300, then DeAndre Hopkins is going to do his thing. I don't know. Yeah. What if it's an AJ Green? My only hesitation. My only hesitation is they have Christian Kirk. AJ Green is still getting trotted out there. They do have Rondale Moore and Chase Edmonds. Like my only hesitation is, what if he spreads it around? What if Minnesota's plan is to take Nuke away, right? You got Pat P, you got a safety over top, you double him or at least shade coverage that side, and then he spreads it around to all these players. So if I were going to do anything, I would take the lowest receiving yard bet, like Rondale Moore, if I can get him at 40.5, and then smash the over on Kyler Murray. But that's my only hesitation. And listen, I know Nuke is matchup proof. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, what if they're like anybody else but DeAndre Hopkins? Anybody else but Nuke, and Kyler will spread the ball around. We saw Christian Kirk do his thing. That's my only reservation and hesitation about this one. But other than that, I like Rondale. I like Kyler. And I do like DeAndre Hopkins receiving yards total. Maybe not 8 receptions.
But largest total I saw on the week is 86.5. But he's also got one of the best matchups according to Jeff Ratcliffe. So there's definitely positive signs there to see why he could go over.
So Pat Peterson is cooked, huh?
Revenge game. You never know. He's going to play up for this one.
I didn't say it, man. I didn't say it. All right, let's go to the next game. Atlanta, Tampa Bay. 12.5, man. Yikes. Atlanta, Tampa Bay. Go ahead and take Tampa Bay on the money line, minus 696. That'll pay out something nice for you. What lines do you like? We don't have to go through every one. You know, people can look it up. Are you interested in any of the Atlanta passing props?
The only one that intrigues me is Calvin Ridley.
Okay.
Sorry. Calvin Ridley. So the problem, though, with Calvin Ridley is his usage last week. That is just, it's pissing me off, man. Like, I can't stress it enough that Calvin Ridley deserves 10 targets every single game. This team is so bad. He needs to be getting those targets. But again, he didn't. They just stopped using him altogether. So that's easily the most frustrating part about this whole situation. But if you ignore that, and I know it's a big thing to ignore, history tells us in his 3 games against Tampa Bay in the past 2 years, he's averaged 13.5 receptions, or 13.5 targets, 8 receptions, 100 yards, and 2/3 of a touchdown. So when he only has an 83.5 receiving yard prop and a 6.5 reception prop, history tells us on an average basis, he's going over that even against Tampa Bay. In a game, they're going to be down. In a game, we expect them to throw a lot. I think there's a lot of narratives that point towards a Calvin Ridley over, but his usage last week in another blowout is just so puzzling and why I can't bring myself to hit that number. But if you want to lean on history, it's probably a bet that you should make because that's just the way it's looking right now. But again, that's in the old offense. This new offense, we don't know what they're looking like. And that's why I don't like any of their numbers, frankly.
What about Kyle Pitts, 47.5 receiving yards, man, 4.5 receptions?
I think he can do it. I think it's a very beatable number for him. It's not high, but we don't really know how Tampa's going to play him either, which is a little bit, for me, I'm not really sure how they play him, who plays against him. And I don't know if he's ready. You know, he's going to be playing a really tough defense, and it's only his second game.
I'm very concerned. I'm like, you've got to start those two in fantasy. I'm very concerned about Atlanta's front, like against Tampa Bay. I just saw what Tampa Bay was able to, like, they completely erased Zeke Elliott. Dak wasn't touched a lot, but that offensive line is better than Atlanta's offensive line. And we saw Atlanta's offensive line give up the cakes to Philadelphia. I mean, they just bent over and spread it open for Philadelphia's defensive line. So Vita Vea, you know, Joe Tryon, Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett, I am concerned. And then also on the Tampa Bay side, I'm concerned because I don't know who's going to go off. Tom Brady is the epitome of, I will throw anywhere, anybody, anytime. Is it Gronk? Is it Godwin? Is it Mike Evans' bounce back game? Will it be Antonio Brown? I have no idea. None. Like,
Yep.
I do not know where it will go. I don't know who the number one is. I guess it's Godwin. I mean, he led the team in targets last week.
Yeah. So to piggyback your
somebody's
point,
gonna
this is
somebody's
the biggest
gonna
problem.
cash out on it. Yeah, somebody's gonna cash. And look at the Mike Evans to go over his plus 130, Chris Godwin plus 100, AB plus 110. Like, even the bettors are kind of like, somebody's gonna go off. Pick your poison.
Stone, it's AJ Terrell. No, he's the rookie, but
No, AJ
to
Terrell's
your
a
point though.
Second year player.
Oh, sorry, he's second year player. But to your
Yeah.
point about Tom Brady and why I would consider taking his under is it's still 309 passing yards, which is a lot. And I do expect them to run quite a bit in this game. But the only line I liked and the only line I was kind of considering taking is Gronk at plus 155 to score a touchdown.
I like
because
that too.
all he has to do is catch one pass in the end zone. They're still trying to catch Antonio Gates and Phillip Rivers for the touchdowns. So I think that's a realistic possibility. I looked at Mike Evans score touchdown, but he's minus 105. And to your point about Brady, I think he's going to try and get Mike Evans involved. Mike Evans had a bad week last week. He's going to say, you know what, Mike, we're playing against an easy team. Let's get you involved early and often and try and find him in the end zone. I could definitely see that happening as just kind of a way to get everyone on the right path. We already saw Godwin go off, AB went off, Gronk went off, but Mike Evans was kind of the guy who didn't have a great game, and I expect that running game to be involved. But I can't trust Bruce Arians when he says that all three of his running backs are starters. What do I do with that?
Yeah.
That means I stay away from all the rushing
Yeah.
props, and I just maybe bet the receivers if you feel them frisky, but I really only was confident in that Gronk touchdown.
Yeah,
and
I like
think that's a
Gronk.
pretty good bet at plus odds.
I like Gronk, and I like Brady over 309. I think they're just gonna light him up in the air. Like, honestly, I think Brady. I think they're just gonna bombs away. I probably would not touch any of the receivers because I think all of them could go. Like, there's a world in which Godwin gets his 7 receptions, AB gets 6, and Mike Evans gets 5. Like, they could all hit the over, or it could be Godwin, Mike Evans, no AB. I have no clue. I just have confidence in Tom Brady, and I do think when he gets towards the red zone, he's going to look for Gronk. I mean, that's a mismatch. Deion Jones can't do anything with Gronk, and Gronk played majority of the snaps at the tight end position week 1. He got 8 targets, I believe, in that game. So he's not just a prop player, no pun intended. Like, he's actually the focal point, one of the focal points of this Tampa Bay offense. So I'm with you on that one. Now we get to I think Dallas covers. Okay. Chargers are favored by 3.5.
I have Dallas to cover.
I think Dallas covers in this one. You can get them plus 150 on the money line. The Chargers are favored by 3.5, over under 54.5. And this is no homerism. I do think this is going to be a shootout. I think this is going to be an absolute just Dallas. Listen, we know what Dallas is going to do. They are going to throw the ball. Dak is going to do his thing. Right now, Dak's over-under is at 305.5 for Dak Prescott with 1.5 touchdowns. I mean, minus 200. Good Lord.
Yeah, that's why. Because it's minus 200, right? But 305.5 is easy money, but continue.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, Dallas, no DeMarcus Lawrence, no Lyle Collins. Who else isn't playing? Just go down the list of all the players who are out for Dallas this week in key positions. But this is what the Cowboys do. No one gave Dallas a shot versus Tampa Bay, and they pushed them right to the brink of a victory. And Dak was sharp in his first action in over 340 games. We know that those wide receivers are going to do their thing. I don't think anybody on the Chargers side of the ball will be able to stop Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb. I understand they've got Derwin James. I like the young kid, Asante Samuel Jr. We know Joey Bosa's a dog. Kenneth Walker playing on the defense out of Oklahoma. But it's the Cowboys offense, and I have full faith in Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. Both of their reception totals, I think these are locks, especially Amari Cooper at 5.5. And look at the price you get on it, minus 139, minus 135 for CeeDee Lamb. So you're not getting any juice on the over there. But I like Dallas to cover in this matchup. And again, I don't bet the spread, but I would, if I were going to do one, I would tease this game, give Dallas 6.5, and then I would take the Cowboys to cover the Chargers. I don't know if they win, but I don't think this is going to be some blowout. I think they're probably going to smash the over. There's no way this is going to be a low.
55.5.
Yeah, over under 55.5. There's no way this is going to be some slugging out game.
At It started at 52. And I would say to anyone out there who likes the Cowboys or likes to bet on the Cowboys, the over-under that I found for the Cowboys-Eagles game next week is 51.5. And I already hit that. But I hit the Cowboys plus 2.5, parlayed with the over at 52.5. So that I was all over the Cowboys early. And I think they could easily win this game. And while the spread didn't move in my favor, unfortunately, I do think that the Cowboys have a real shot in this one. And to your point about Dak's over, it just seems like free money, honestly. Like Herbert could probably go over. He has to hit 300 yards. Keenan Allen needs to go over 77.5 receiving yards, 7.5 receptions though, but I think he could do it at plus 110. And then no lines for Austin Eckler because his status is a bit in question right now. So no books to put out lines for Austin Eckler.
Yeah, so Keenan Allen a matchup against Trayvon Diggs, but I like Keenan Allen. That's high receipt. That's 8 receptions for Keenan Allen. That's up there, man. That's up there. But I think Herbert goes over. I think this is just going to be a points. You get points. I think if you smash the over on the receivers, you're going to be good. You smash the over on the quarterbacks, you're good. Dak and Herbert at 1.5 touchdowns. I mean, you could parlay this game right here and just over 2 overs on Dak, 2 overs on Justin Herbert. Take the overs on the 2 receivers from Dallas, and you're good. Money. You got 5-6 legs in that parlay that probably should hit. And I am going to put one in on this, and make sure you go to ftnbets.com/something bets tracker.
Bet tracker.
Just Google FTN bet tracker, and you can see all my stuff. I'll put it in. Let's talk about, we've almost made it through. Let's go Tennessee and Seattle. Seattle is favored against the hapless Titans by 6 points. 54 over under in this matchup. And you know we got to let the man cook. Russell Wilson, right? Russell Wilson. Let Russ cook. Where are you at with this matchup and Russell Wilson in particular, Jay?
Oh, man, I can't believe you just gave Russ all that praise when I don't like Russell Wilson to cook in this game.
Oh.
Not because I don't think
Tennessee's
that he can't
defense
cook,
stinks.
but so did Indy's. And how many passes did he throw against Indy? He only threw 23. So I like the under on Russell Wilson's pass attempts. But there was an interesting story that came out that someone in his camp actually recently passed away of cancer, and he spoke openly about it at a press conference. So I am a little bit fearful that if I make this bet, Russell will be motivated to cook and may go off for like 400 yards. But history says that Russell Wilson, in games where he's favored by 6 or more points, throws the ball on an average of 30 times. So 36.5 is a pretty big number. And even still at home, he throws for slightly more, 33 PAs a game. So again, we'll see what happens. But I do think this is a pretty high number for Russ. And watching how efficient that offense was last week, I think we're going to see more of the same. You know, like Tyler Lockett may run deep. DK is going to run deep. And I think this Titans defense is very beatable. And it's going to cause Russ to not have to throw the ball as many times, but still get all those fantasy points that we hope he can against this Titans defense.
All right. So I like the under 36.5 passing attempts as well. I'm with you on there. Carson, 67.5 rushing yards, 15.5 carries. DK, over 77.5 receiving yards. Tyler Lockett, over 67.5 receiving yards, 5.5 receptions for Lockett, 6.5 receptions for DK, and they are juicing that to plus 125. It's a lot of receptions for DK. A lot of receptions.
Yeah,
he can hit it, but if he's not going to throw the ball a ton, little hesitant there. Let's talk about Tennessee really quickly. And the Titans, Ryan Tannehill, what do you have for
259 and a half passing yards, minus 115, and 1.5 touchdowns, minus 120 on the under, minus 110 on the over. I just don't love it for either side. Derrick Henry, 84.5 rushing yards, 19.5 carries. How do you feel about 20 carries for Derrick Henry in this game?
I feel nothing for Tennessee right now until I see them actually play football. They didn't play last week, so I don't know what that team is. And I'm not even being funny. Like, I feel nothing until I see them play.
Yeah.
I need to see them play. Like, no one did anything. A.J. Brown saved the day with the touchdown. Henry got all his stuff late in the game. I feel nothing about Tennessee until I see them play. So, for me, I'm not touching Tennessee. I've got to see them play this week. There are other – you don't have to bet on every single game, right? Go with the ones that you trust that are exploitable, the Dallas games, the Kansas City game. Like, I'm just not touching Tennessee. I love A.J. Brown, love Julio Jones, love King Henry. Not touching them until I see them actually play a football game. So I'm good on that. And let's finish out with Kansas City, Baltimore. Man, Lamar Jackson, dude. This kid just can't catch a break.
Can't catch
man.
a break.
He cannot catch a break. I mean, receivers hurt, running backs hurt, offensive line hurt. And now he gets Kansas City Sunday night at home. I don't think he's ever beaten Patrick Mahomes. And this is the Sunday night game. Kansas City's I'm surprised the line didn't move more than this. I was able to get it at 3.5. I locked that in. Their horrible right tackle that's moving back to left tackle. Ronnie Stanley's not there. This could get ugly. Patrick Mahomes over under 316.5. They are about to put it on. They're about to put it on Baltimore. They're about to make a statement this game. I think they're going to come out guns blazing. And split. Patrick Mahomes splits versus Baltimore. Go ahead and drop this out there. What does he do versus Baltimore?
So the reason why this over is definitely going to happen, lock it in. 31 for 44 on average. This is, I believe, in a 3-game sample. 378 passing yards and 3 touchdowns is what Patrick Mahomes averages against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, that number is extremely high. But what scares me, and Ray, we can talk about this quickly. Travis Kelce, 87.5 receiving yards, 7.5 receptions. Tyreek Hill, 88.5 receiving yards, 6.5 receptions. When I pulled their splits, they were basically right par with those averages. So where is the juice here? Where do we find this juice? And for people who just prepare yourselves right now, because it's Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman against the Baltimore Ravens, for whatever reason, he's a Raven killer. I don't know why, but he is. His over-under for receiving yards is 36.5 receiving yards. And this longest reception, again, like I told you with KJ Hamler, 17.5. Very beatable for another speedster who plays on an offense who's going to throw a lot. But his splits against the Baltimore Ravens, 5.5 targets, 3 receptions a game, 89 yards, and a touchdown. So in the 2 games he's played Baltimore, he's averaged 89 yards, 3 receptions, and 1 touchdown across those games. That is a very, very beatable matchup for him. Clearly, they like to use him against Baltimore, and I love this number. For a guy who goes 89 receptions in 2 games against Baltimore, I think he should be able to beat 36.5 receiving yards in this game, and I love his longest reception at only 17.5.
All right. I mean, I'm telling you right now what I'm going to do. I'm taking the over Mahomes yards, the over on the passing touchdowns. I'm taking the over on the rushing yards for Mahomes. So that's, 3 legs right there just in Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And then I'll figure something else out because –
if I was to pick one, I'd pick Kelce. I think I'm team Kelce this week over Tyreek for the yardage. That's just how I feel about it.
Tyreek lights up Baltimore every time as well.
Yeah.
And he just came off of 11 for 197. They have nobody. Like Marlon Humphrey, I don't see it happening. No Jimmy Smith. I think this is going to be good for Kansas City. I'm not touching Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Not doing it. Not doing it. Even though I do think 50.5 rushing yards is very doable, but I can't do it. And then for the Ravens, the only person to talk about is Lamar Jackson. 217 passing, 1.5 passing touchdowns, 71.5 rushing yards. Nothing available for anybody else. No Tyson Williams, no Sammy Watkins, nothing else available. Do you like Lamar?
I just can't do it. Maybe if you want to go after the passing yards, assuming he tries to keep up with Mahomes. But outside of that, I don't know what he's going to be dealing with. It could be extremely rough for Lamar in this game. I'm all over, like you said, the Patty stuff, and I like the Mecole bet if you want to place that bet. But I think I'm staying away from Baltimore, although I did hit that spread at 1.5 and then hit it again at 3.5, which was nice. Yeah. And then I also have the under at 56.5 if you like that under. It's now at 54.5.
All right, there you go. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate you. Good week, man. Thank you all in the comments, and I have it now. I've got the link. FTNbets.com/NFL/bet-tracker. FTNbets/NFL/bet-tracker. Everybody's bets are on there. Me, Kevin Adams, Elliot Chris, Jeff Ratcliffe, Giles, Noah, everybody, Benny, everybody on the squad. So if you want to see what I'm placing this weekend, head over there. Let's win some money. Thank y'all for joining us this week. 5 days, Waking Up with Ray G. If you can, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow Jordan and I on Twitter. Tell your friends about it. Tell your mom about it. Let's have some fun this weekend. Jorgen from Germany, are we benching CEH in fantasy football this week? You probably don't have a better option, so you probably still got to roll with it. Man, this light, when the light comes in, I look real, like the skin looks good. I like how I look when the light comes in. Appreciate y'all tapping in this week. Y'all have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy football, and we'll be back on Monday. We out. Peace.